Hi, Trevor, mate. Thanks for taking the time this morning. I'm not sure what time it is in Chile at the moment, but maybe do you just want to kick us off, just what sort of opportunity is this for the young Socceroos? Obviously, we're not used to seeing junior boys, international sides, World Cups. I think the last one was your under-17 side before COVID.
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for the question, Joey. The boys are acutely aware of the opportunity it is for their lives, I think, to say they went to a World Cup. A lot of them have made choices in the last months about where they play this season to make sure they could be here. And obviously, we haven't yet gone into the FIFA kind of environment. We've been in a nice little training camp, so it's been private. So a couple of days' time, we'll actually do that. And I think it'll be much more apparent for all the players, the hype around the tournament and everything that goes with it.
And on the squad itself, obviously we've seen what some of the 17s you had at the World Cup, they've gone on to do, become Socceroos and the like. How excited are you about the talent at your disposal with this under 20?
Definitely very excited, Joe. In the games we've had with this group, and obviously we've filtered quite a few players through. From a coaching perspective, it's a pleasure. It's good to watch them take on challenges. It's good to see them show personality. So, obviously, part of the role is to collectively get the team playing well and understanding, how they can function together. But it's also great to see young Aussie players who aren't scared of anybody.
Trevor, what does a good tournament look like, do you think?
I think taking on the challenges one at a time, that's how we were successful in the Asian Cup, was not to get ahead of ourselves, was just to prepare well. And I think what a good tournament looks like, Vince, is really solid performances, every match being in the match to win the match, individuals showing up as who they are so that they show they can handle some expectation and some match pressure. And, that's our main job in the preparation, is they're good players. They're here because they're good players and because they have qualities. And so just getting them ready so they can actually perform in those moments. And we have to have the self-belief that any match we play, we can win.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the evolution of the squad since the Asian Cup as well? Obviously, some ins, some outs. Any in particular there that you sort of wish to highlight, or can you just, talk us through how you went from the selection, which brought history for Australia, to this one?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, Vince. It's 6 months since that tournament. And in that time, some boys unfortunately have had injuries. Some have had club moves where their club haven't released them. Some guys have dropped in form. And I think our responsibility is to give everyone fair consideration. But when it comes down to it, to make the decision of who's ready right now to perform. As a nation, we've earned the right to be in this. And because there's so many players who've contributed, we look to choose players who'd already been away with the team because they had experience in the environment, they had some understanding about how they could adapt, and then we've tried to select the players who are in the best form right now.
Excellent. Look, I just got a couple more and then I'll hand over. One is just about what you mentioned around the opportunity of their lives. Can you talk a little bit about what the opportunity is that exists for the players here beyond the actual tournament itself? Like, you've been to many of these things. Evidently, careers sort of get decided sort of by performances at these tournaments because there's clubs watching and I guess decisions can be made that will alter the trajectory of some lives and careers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a high intensity, short period of time, real variety of opponents. Knockout type of football. So if someone's in great form at this time, they can certainly be noticed on the world stage. I think they're doing it for their country, but also there's an opportunity where they can have an impact on their next steps in their life. Then there might be some players who played this tournament who didn't get the best out of themselves, but really grow from the experience and go back to club football with really specific goals. And I think the key thing is that, long term, this is part of becoming a Socceroo and part of becoming a senior professional football at the highest level you can. So you can't lose. You can either learn from the experience or you can really perform at the moment. And either way, I think there's a lot for you going forward.
Yeah, and just lastly from me for the time being, just wanted to ask about Moussa Touré. His brother Mo has just had an absolutely sensational window for the Socceroos. And from many years ago, people in Adelaide were saying that, you think Hassan's good, wait for Mo. You think Mo's good, wait for Moussa. How do you sort of observe his development over the last few years, particularly since he left Australia? He's a little bit sort of out of sight for us in terms of what he's been doing in Denmark. Yeah,
it's been a great challenge for Moussa. He's in a really comfortable place now because his first move was to France. He made a great impact initially, and then he found it challenging, the environment, etc., being away from family. And where he's ended up in Randers, he's with his brother. And his brother, is really becoming a very good pro. He's looking after himself. He's setting high standards, and what he's doing with the Socceroos. So I think that comfort for Moussa of having some family around. There's time where they play together in games quite often, where Mo's the big guy up top and Moussa plays off him. So he's happy. And Moussa's certainly a guy who's got an infectious personality. So when he comes into the team, he's always looking to spark something with the boys or with the staff. And he's certainly coming here happy and ready to go.
Hey Trevor, hope you're well.
Cheers, Ben. Very good, thanks, mate.
The bulk of the players in the squad are based in Australia. There's a lot of guys who are still in the A-League, and that's great to see from an A-League development point of view. But are there any fitness concerns over that, given the A-League is still a month away compared to some of the overseas-based boys in the camp?
No fitness concerns, and I think it's clear that a number of players have come back to the A-League because they knew the A-League clubs would support them in this journey, right? And they also came back to play senior football. So they've done that in the Australia Cup and some pre-season matches. Look, we've been tracking their fitness levels. Most of these guys have been doing about 30 kilometres of work a week, regardless of how many matches they're playing. So they have the capacity to handle tournament, distances and workloads. And now probably the thing we're trying to get into them now is just some match exposure. So we played yesterday and we'll play again tomorrow, and just to give them some match exposure so they can sort of sharpen their tools a little bit. But there's no fitness issues at all.
Also, I wanted to ask about James Overy. When you look at the squad, his name stands out given Plies is trained at Manchester United's youth academy, and the fact that he's played youth football for Scotland before. He was obviously in the Friendship Cup squad for Australia, but how's he settled into this squad? And are you expecting there might be a bit of a tug of war with the Scottish FA over him in the future?
No, James is an Aussie. He wants to play for us. His first year in Manchester was difficult because he got some injuries, and there's many players that we want to give a chance to in national team, but we only can ever take 23, and in this case 21. And so there was a great opportunity. Richie Garcia, who's the assistant coach here, took the team to that tournament. We sent a lot of our top talent to that tournament. 2007 born players, Lucas Harrington, who's here, Meda Mehmeti went, Dylan Leonard, who's just done a transfer overseas. They all went to this tournament, and James was there as well. And there's a couple of reasons why James is with us now. He has stood out for the national team in that tournament. And secondly, he's playing in a position where his qualities are useful to this team. And certainly, he's a great kid. He's got great personality, and he's fitting in with the boys very well.
Just quickly on James, a lot of people in Australia probably wouldn't have seen him play. I mean, I've only seen him once, and that was in a pre-season friendly for Glory a couple of years ago. Given the fact he moved over to England before he was able to play in the A-League, how would you describe him to players, to people who haven't seen him play before?
He's explosive, he's dynamic. As a younger kid, he was probably more of a winger, and he's sort of adapted to a fullback's role now. He's got a great physique. He's strong. He can really match it with people physically, and he's quite clever. He's got a range of pass. He likes to take people on, and the way they coach at Manchester United, he's doing certain movements or taking up positions and options that are very easily fit into this squad.
Trevor, wanted to ask you, you mentioned before a bit about clubs not releasing players for your squad. How much of that was a challenge for this under-20 World squad? I don't think this is FIFA protected dates, so clubs have to release players. How much of a challenge was that with the squad?
Whether it's 10 people or one person, Joey, they all want to be here. And unfortunately, a couple of players were either just making moves and needed time to settle in at their club, or they were prominent, they were starting to perform at their club and the club didn't want to release them, which again, in a way is a good thing for the young player. It's not great that they miss a World Cup, but it shows that they've been valued by their club, and we have to accept that. There's no team here that's got all of their players. Everybody will have that challenge, that depending on the club situation, they might choose not to let the player go.
And you also touched before, Trev, on just the fitness of the boys and backing up a couple of days later with a different game. That's something in particular we've heard Tony talk about in the context of the Socceroos, as particularly around someone like Mo Toure backing up as well. Just how important is it for these boys, I guess, one, to learn from that experience of backing up in tournament football and playing huge games every few days, and also how valuable is that experience for them?
Yeah, there's a few pieces to that. The first one for me is if they become top-level footballers, there's going to be periods of their life where it's just a congested window. They're going to be playing every 3 days and learning how to learn through matches when the training volume comes down and you're pretty much match to match. So that's definitely the learning for them. I think something we've done on purpose with this group is put together a great backroom staff and sports science, medicine, and gone to as many tournaments as possible so that the staff really tune in well to how to help the players between matches. We're always adapting our schedule, little pieces here and there to make it that they can perform each time, and we can still have an influence on their preparation on the pitch. So that's key, and I think because we believe in the depth of the squad, we're not afraid to use the guys that don't start the first game. So then you share the load over the time a little. Yeah.
Obviously, it's not a one-to-one correlation, teenagers versus seasoned pros, but that data that your sports science team is getting and what the lessons that you're taking from how you're approaching this, will that be fed up to the senior team? Because obviously they've got a very big tournament coming up as well.
Yeah, look, Joey, they're across everything, right? And to be fair, Football Australia is doing this together. So our sports science staff, we've been getting help from Socceroos staff to monitor some of our players. So the data that's coming in, of course, we focus on our age group, but the data that's coming in is available to the Socceroos. That's the way it's set up, so that every player in the national team jersey potentially could be in consideration if that's what Popper wants to do. He's got the opportunity to pull them up.
Guys, Adrian.
Expanding on that a bit.
Go for it, Aaron. Go for it, Aaron. I was going to ask if you or Adrian had anything as well. Archie, when you want to unmute after Aaron's asked a couple of questions, go for it, mate. Otherwise, yes, Aaron, please fill your boots.
Thanks. Just wanted to chat a bit more on that, Trevor. Obviously, these players are a lot younger than what we typically see in the Socceroos at a World Cup. Have you done any off-field work trying to prepare them for the pressure and intensity of a World Cup? Like, very different to anything else they've competed.
Yeah, it's a great question. We have done some work about their self-confidence, their personal goals, their personal strengths, and knowing who they are. And of course, nothing's been as big as this, so some of it's going to come from the environment, and the messaging from us is going to be, you're good enough. So, and you will find a solution, and you will cope with it, and you will be challenged. You will find some days hard. you'll find that a mistake you make might hurt you. But at the end of the day, the message here is about being resilient, about overcoming challenges, about that's the life in sport, right? So you could see it as a daunting challenge. I see it as an opportunity for the boys to show where they're at in that journey and coping with it. And I think a lot of them, because they've had exposure in the A-League, some have had exposure overseas, some have had exposure with the under-23 national team, and even young Paul Ocon's had a period of time, and he and Sebastian Esposito went in with the Socceroos. So they've all had those little moments which stimulate, am I ready for something bigger?
And have they sort of taken that on board? Like they're all excited and, ready for the challenges that you've been talking about?
Yeah, they don't talk a lot, these boys. Amongst themselves they do, but they don't have big heart-to-hearts with me or the staff. They pretty much show it on the pitch, and I think they've got this group have been tested, not just in the Asian Cup, but well before that. They've played some big nations, and I think through those battles they've had, they've understood that it's not all going to be their own way, but they're capable of getting what they want.
Brilliant, thank you.
I got a couple more, if that's all right. Just
Sure.
Trevor, I wanted to ask you as well about James Overy and just like, I guess the pluses and minuses, if there are any minuses, in terms of just being in the environment that he's at the moment at Manchester United. I know it's difficult because he's had some injuries since he got there, but I saw Ruben Amorim had him in first team training for a period towards the end of last season. How beneficial, I guess, is it that he's there? It's clearly one of the best academies in England with some amazing players that he's able to train with.
Yeah, I think that's his daily training environment is a very, very high level, whether it's the coaching, the young players he's with, or, for example, last week he trained with the first team during and off the back end of the international break. So he was in around first team players just before he came into camp, played an under-21s match, and then jumped on a plane to South America. At the moment, if he plays to the level we see, he's a bit advanced of other boys his own age in terms of the exposure he gets. But he's still here to learn, Vince. He's still going to be challenged. He's still going to have to make good decisions against some of the best young players in the world. So it's really exciting to see how each of them copes with it. They're footballers, so
Yeah.
the goals are at the end, and the opponent is there to beat, and we're going to make sure that they play to their strengths. And James has certainly got that. He's energetic. He wants to get forward. He wants to compete. He's quite clever. He likes to combine with people. So we're going to encourage as much of that as possible so he can be himself.
Yeah, I was just going to ask on the back of that, is this tournament an opportunity for him to push himself a little further up the pecking order at his club? Because we are now in an era in the Premier League and across Europe where, big clubs are playing real young players. They're not seeing age as a barrier in some aspects. It's like, I think Arsenal, other teams are playing 16-year-olds. Like, is there a world where James can get on the pitch realistically in the not too distant future for Manchester United?
I guess Ruben has to answer that question, but you can't do yourself harm by playing well at your own age group at a World Cup. It's for sure there's players missing. Lamine Yamal's not going to be here, but there's still going to be some very, very high level talent of his age group and 2 years older than him. And I think if he can show who he is, it's going to certainly mean that when he goes back to his club, they're looking to give him opportunities because they want to help. I think they want to help his pathway be an upward trajectory all the time.
Does anyone else have some additional questions they'd like to ask?
Sort of if I jump in, Ruth, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Trevor, how you going? Sorry, mate, I'm
You're
just
right.
driving so you can't see the ugly head. But I just wanted to ask, obviously, just you've been involved in the game for a long time. Like, funny, this age group's just there or thereabouts when the A-League first started. These players were born. But how do you sort of assess the current depth for yourself? Do you feel it's, we're seeing player after young player sort of make big moves, but also, crack it at big clubs around the world, especially in England. Do you feel as if we're sort of reaping the benefits of when that A-League first started, but also just, is this the most excited you felt about, this age group of players since probably the golden generation of Socceroos back in the late 90s, which ended up being the core of that 2006 group?
I think it's a really enjoyable group to work with. When we talk about the possibilities about how we can play against anybody, we're doing analysis of Italy to get ready for Italy. And when we're talking about how we're going to play it, it's not playing anything other than on the front foot. So the players as a group and the individuals have a lot of qualities to attack people, to solve situations. They have some character about them. They don't mind having their feathers ruffled a bit and giving a bit back. Trying to compare them to another journey is hard, but certainly in the couple of years we've spent with this group, there's certainly well more than 23 players who show courage, cleverness, a real desire to win when they're in the jersey. So I'm looking forward to what they can do. Whether I could compare this to another generation or not, I don't know. It is very fortunate that we're in a period of the A-League in particular where young players are getting serious game time. Clubs are definitely looking at that as part of their role, not just trying to win the trophy, but also trying to develop young talent and obviously make the business side flow. And this group of players is probably in the right era where that's working well for them.
Just in regards to that positivity you were just mentioning, what do you think switched in that front? Because you look at now, for example, just that last Socceroos game, the youth in the attack. Perennially, we've always had that issue with attackers. What sort of switch do you think across the game in terms of developing more of that attacking style? Because we've always had no issues with midfielders and especially defenders. But what do you think's changed that now? We're seeing the benefits where we've got young attackers coming through at this young level.
Maybe it's the messaging at their club, giving people responsibility, asking them to take people on. And certainly the language we use here, Adrian, is, to take risks, to take them in a positive way. You can't win without taking some risks. So we tell them to be as proactive as they can, to take people on, to play the positive option with no fear. And obviously we have a structure of how we play which then supports that. Back at club football, if we want to go back 10, 15 years and we talk about skill acquisition, or we talk about mini-roos and small-sided games and futsal and all the bits and pieces where kids get to express themselves, one thing here is we try not to overcoach them. We try to give them guidance and options, but very much like be yourself when you're out there. And I think overcoaching could be part of the reason why there's self-doubt or people don't, take all the opportunities that are in front of them.
Just checking the room if anyone else had any additional questions.
I just had one last one. Trev, we're seeing this young talent coming through. Increasingly, we're seeing overseas clubs not just signing them, but actually paying for them and transfer fees. But it feels like there's still maybe a bit of a drag, perceptions of Australian footballers. If they had the same resume, but they were Argentinian or something, they'd go for a few million more. Are tournaments like this a good way as well to help bring those perceptions forward? It's not just what they do at the clublands, but the young Socceroos are playing well against Italy and Argentina, and that's a better way to earn respect from the rest of the world and help bring the perception of Australian youth.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Joey. And whether it's the Socceroos rankings climbing the table, whether it's the youth national teams being prominent at tournaments like this, whether it's they're exports, right? So when a player leaves, what do people say about them when they get there? Do they talk about their ability to perform? Do they talk about their character? Do they, their resilience, their ability to adapt and improve? So, of course, performance is part of it, but most of the clubs that are investing in these players are signing kids for 3 or 4 years overseas to give them time to develop. And I think if we can keep the momentum up, this generation, some players 2 or 3 years younger keep doing the same thing, then you'll start to raise our market value, and obviously, globally, the respect for how we perform, then the value of our players goes up. It's just quite simple. If we're seen to be a good product and worth investing in, then the value will go up, and that's how it works.
Do you feel like our players are currently undervalued? Clubs are getting a bargain when they're just paying a few $100,000?
Yeah, I do, but I think that there's whether you get right down to algorithms, the world of football is not silly. So they're going tried and tested. Yes, sometimes they overpay for the highest profile players, but there's a bidding war, a bit like there is when you're trying to buy real estate. Is it really worth it? But if you want to get it, you need to spend the money, right? And that's where South American players, if they seem to be the hot player, Mastantuono, who's just gone to Real Madrid, okay, he's starting there, and that's a $50 million transfer. So that's because he's hot property. That's because everyone wants to get him and make sure they have him. And I'm not saying we can't produce players at that level. We just haven't had the volume of players move who go into the highest level and perform. And that's certainly something for our journey going forward.